All right, so welcome everybody. We're going to do a little bit of centering meditation first, and then we'll do our tarot reading, and then we'll get into our practice. So I'll just invite you to come into a comfortable position. So if you want to do that seated and stay close to the screen so you can see the card, you can do that. But if you want to lay down, especially if you are feeling a little bit more tired today, you could take constructive rest pose or shavasana or even child's pose, and just let yourself be in a place where you can um, kind of connect to yourself, just get into your breath, kind of tune in a little bit, which is so much of what we're doing here. So find that spot for yourself. And you're welcome to move around with it, fidget, whatever it is that you need to do to kind of get comfortable. You can close your eyes or soften your gaze. Maybe take a few deep breaths. And just take this time to kind of filter out whatever it is that's been going on for you today, this week. It sounds like a few of us have had a bit of an intense week. So this is a moment to pause and just kind of let that slide away so that you can be right here. Just taking a moment to notice your body, the space that you're in, your connection to the ground, the earth and the land that you're on. And I'm on Plains Cree and Blackfoot land in Treaty 6 territory right now. And a big part of what we're doing here is connecting to the energy of the moon. And for me, a big part of that is really just connecting to the energy of the land and the seasons and our communities and all of those things that we're always connected to, but we don't always think about because we think of ourselves as being these individual, self-contained um, things, but actually we're so connected to everything else. So just taking a moment to kind of notice how you are feeling, like your own energy, but also if you can kind of notice just how you're responding to other things that are happening in the world. You don't have to know, specifically what they are. I'll talk a bit more about the moon in a moment, but just seeing how you are experiencing and receiving your energy today. So right now we are on a ninth night, which if you're doing the Moon Goddess meditation series right now, you might know a little bit more about that and the goddess that presides over this particular moon. And her name is Kulasundari, and she has to do with connecting to community, connecting to our current people, and also to our ancestors, right? And the big lesson with Kulasundari is around like learning what you've learned, but also being willing to write your own story. And so the ninth night is sort of just past the half moon. The moon is waxing, it's moving towards the full moon. The energy is still relatively balanced, but there's something sort of changing about that. There's sort of a building happening. And as I've tuned into the energy of this moon for myself lately, there's been this feeling, and I wonder if any of you can resonate with this. It's almost like there's a flashing on and off. There's sort of an energy of kind of hope and optimism, and then that shifts back into sort of hopelessness or exhaustion. And there's a bit of a flip back and forth that's been happening for me around that. So that's kind of how I've been feeling the moon. And part of it is this question about, like, how are we changing, or like how are we moving into this next cycle? And I think that there's a piece of it around choice, like how we're working with our own perspectives. So I want to share our tarot card for today as well. So you can open your eyes if you like. You can just really slowly make your way back up to a seat if you want to. You can stay as you are if you prefer as well. And there are a few things I want to share about this particular card. So the card that came up is Judgment. And this is from a deck called the Tarot of the Divine, and it's related to, each card is related to a different mythology. I'm not particularly familiar with Sun Wukong, I think it's called. It's a story about a monkey in the Buddhist tradition, but I don't really know what the moral of the story is particularly, so we don't have to talk too much about the story. But I'll just show you the image, and what I'd love for you to notice is, you know, what do you feel? And what do you notice about the card? And you are more than welcome to unmute and let me know, what do you think about this card? What comes up for you when you look at it?
I find it somewhat confrontational. Like there's a confrontation between the monkey and a lotus flower, the divine lotus flower that I'm seeing there. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of he's preparing to fight,
Mm.
or you know, because he has the staff in his hand and he's, you know, very activated. The tail is up. Yeah, that he's preparing to push back on something something that's bigger than him.
That's actually the only parts of the story that I know, is that this monkey, born from a stone, ended up having all these supernatural powers, and in some way he defies heaven. And so the gods bury him under a mountain for a long time. And so everything that you just said is like, that's the energy of the story, is that he's wanting to defy heaven and kind of preparing for this battle. So that's for sure in the card, for sure. Yeah. What else do you guys notice?
The posture and the way his back is to us, and he's watching the flower and what kind of look like petals or clouds, like he's very wary of that and not going to take his eye off it. And it kind of makes me think of what you just said about the confusing energy right now. We get teased in spring, like we see flowers and we get sunshine, and you think, oh, you can put the winter stuff away and shed the layers of winter, but you can't, because the next day the temperature drops and you get snow or we get rain. So it's that back and forth of spring where we're not there yet. But it's a strange card.
Mm-hmm. It is a strange card. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so feel free to continue. Danielle, did you want to say something?
Well, I also kind of get the sense that less of a conflict, but more of like the lotus sun is going to be there regardless. Like he is in its rays and it is there for him or them, and they can kind of take from it. It looks like he's kind of traveling away from it, like, or, you know, past it. And maybe it's just like a little bit of a like, okay, that's still there and I'm going to go on my way. And it's still going to be there.
Yeah, I definitely saw this card when I first pulled it. Just, I saw it in a little bit more of a positive light, I think. Like I was just sort of noticing just how beautiful that lotus is, and this sort of feeling of the sunlight shining down, and also being on this journey for sure. And I'll share with you a bit about what I know about the card Judgment, and I have a bit more to offer around that. So it's interesting this image is interesting. This is a non-traditional deck, so I'm just going to show you the traditional image that you often see with Judgment. This is a book by one of my tarot teachers, Jessica Dorr. And I want to read you a sentence that she offers because it resonated for me today. But you kind of see this, I mean, this is Resurrection Day, right? Like from the Bible. It's, or not Resurrection Day, that's reckoning or what, yeah, that it's that moment of like, whoever is, you know, going to be friends with God can come to heaven now, and the others will be left behind. Like that's sort of the traditional story that is often told within Judgment. And I think there are different ways to read it as well. And you might notice different things about this card. I mean, these people are in coffins, which I find really interesting. They're kind of coming up from death, I guess, and they're sort of being called to their true place or like their true journey. And so it's a real moment of change. And, you know, I have my connotations about the Christian traditions and all of that stuff. So it's kind of nice to have a non-traditional deck in that sense. But so this card is, I've often read it as being related to the idea of karma, like whatever you have done, you'll see the consequences of your actions, like whatever has been, whatever energies you've been putting forth, those are going to be returning to you now. Like that's often sort of what the card says. But there's also an interpretation that I love, which is the idea of the call, being called to where you're meant to be. And I just want to read you this sentence that Jessica Dorr has in her chapter here, where she says, answering the call requires a very specific psychological task, which is that we forget anything that isn't useful to the journey and remember everything that is. So for me, that really resonated today because, you know, I think with this sort of flashing on and off energy, this sort of, are we going to hope? Are we going to despair? Like what is the feeling there? And also the moon being on the 9th night and this idea of like, there is a change coming, like something is happening. And like Laurel was saying, I think so much of that is related to the tease of spring, just feeling like change comes, but sometimes it's like, well, it stops and starts. It doesn't always feel like you're kind of on this linear journey, and change is never linear, right? As linear as we want it to be, it's never like that. And so for me, I think that that card is really a reminder to think about like, well, what are your choices around how you want to go forward in this change? And what are your perspectives about it? I think what's been coming up for me is really like, you know, going on a certain new journey or wanting to take on a certain new project. What old stories am I really, really holding on to that are preventing me from being able to go forward, you know, with this new task or this new idea the way that I want to? And how much of that is, you know, about reality and how much of it is about me just holding on to old stories that don't necessarily have any impact on the future, right? Because we forget that. Like we think that if something happened in the past, it's inevitably going to happen in the future. And it takes a little bit of work. It's that psychological task to remember we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. And so the attitude that we bring to it is important. And the, you know, I think that there is an element in this card of like courage. And like Jane said, there's a bit of defiance there. There's a bit of like, okay, I'm ready to kind of go for this. I'm ready to, you know, however you look at this card, maybe he has to do this task of like leaping, you know, from place to place and kind of being able to go where he's trying to go, and achieve his goal and learn something along the way, of course, because you can't not if you're on a journey, right? How do you guys feel about that?
I think that's interesting, specifically, if you can hold that card up again for a second, the one with the monkey. I think it's interesting specifically in that the clouds, and I put that in air quotes because I believe that's what they're supposed to represent, have the exact same imagery as the path that he's on. So there's something quite interesting about that parallel for me around the idea of that leap, is that it's already there with you. You've already been traveling that journey. You've already been facing those challenges. You've already had that judgment within you. You've like all these layers of that. And that idea of that transition, for me, that's almost like a comforting piece. The idea that you've already been on it, like you're already there, and that whatever leap you have to take is more of an internal leap than a literal leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I'm just really struck by the juxtaposition of the sort of day of judgment, the you know, the imagery you showed us on the other card, where the, you know, you are an object, or like, I feel like, you know, the angel's just summoning you and it's a decision and it's judgment that's happening external to you. And this to me is really like judgment that is like judgment goes both ways. It's not only divine judgment on you, but your assessment of the situation and your response to what is being offered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this card illuminates the internal piece of it, that, as you said, it's not something that's happening to you necessarily, or, even in that sense of, atoning for your actions being this thing that you have no control over. I mean, so much of that is also your perspective, right? Like, well, you can think of something as a punishment or a learning, just as an example, right? You can have a different perspective around that. And I love this idea of I hadn't noticed that the clouds and the path are the same. And so part of what that makes me think about too is that, like, the battle you're, like, you may not realize that the battle you're waging is against something within yourself, right? It's not necessarily something external. It's something about you, about what's happening within you, and the way that you're reading things, right? And I think a couple of you have mentioned this feeling of, like, always already, like there's something about the stability of the sun in the sky, or like that divine energy that's just going to be there, and the clouds in the path having that connection. But again, you might not realize that you've been here before, and you have the tools that you need to go forward on this journey. Yeah, I really love that. I find that that's what I need to hear today, for sure. I don't know about you guys. That's feeling right to me. Yeah. Anything else?
What do lotus flowers typically represent?
Well, I know more about lotus flowers from the sort of tantric Hindu perspective, but I think it's similar in the Buddhist tradition, which this would be from, which is enlightenment, and the symbol of growing from a seed in usually a really dark, muddy pond, and kind of having to reach up through the darkness to find the light. So it's a metaphor for kind of the meditation practice being kind of getting through the muddiness of, like, quote unquote reality, or the illusion as it's sometimes understood, to see the truth, which is divinity. But I think the other way of thinking about it too is, like, just being on that journey where just because you're in darkness doesn't mean you're gonna not find the light. Like, that doesn't, the path, the end goal doesn't always represent what the path looks like, right? And I think the lotus flower really has that, for me, energy of, like, something within you that allows you to keep going even though it's dark, which is, like, something about that is actually making me want to cry right now. It's like, being in that darkness and just trusting that there is that energy in you that keeps moving toward healing, keeps moving towards change, keeps moving toward love and connection. Like, even when we're heartbroken, or even when we experience traumas and things like that, there is that spark within us that allows us to keep going, even when we don't necessarily have, like, we can't necessarily see the encouragement around us. It's there. And like you guys pointed out in this card, like, there's something that's always there, even if you're not, whether you're actively engaging with it or not. Yeah. Thanks for that question. That was an important piece today, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move it into our bodies a bit? Okay, then we can come back to this in the discussion as well. Okay, so let's make our way into child's pose. Or you could lay on your belly if that's more comfortable for you. It might be nice to just be kind of close to the ground for a little bit. And I'm just going to take my hands into this little diamond shape, so the fingertips and the thumbs are touching, and then, if possible, just place the head into that little mudra. And let's just take a moment to breathe and be in our bodies. I want you to be comfortable here, so adjust as you need to. You can widen the knees, for example, or it's always okay to take a different shape than the one I'm offering. So just to recap some of the pieces that came up for us, there's this idea of a call to adventure or to change. And being in this practice of forgetting or letting go of all of the pieces that are not helpful on this journey, so that we can make space for the pieces that we do need. There's this reminder that wherever we are on that journey, we've been on it for a while. many of the battles that we face are internal, even though it might seem that they're external. And we have that image of the lotus flower, which has this energy or this spark to be able to move through the darkness in order to reach the light at the surface of the water. So just breathing into whatever is landing or resonating for you about that card today. And deepening your breath as you do. Okay, and you can stay right where you are, or we'll climb up to our hands and our knees and we'll move through a little bit of cat and cow. Just to start to allow the energy to flow through our bodies. So you can inhale into a little bit of a back bend and exhale to curl under. This could be done in a seat as well if you're not comfortable on hands and knees, and you could also be on your fists if your wrists don't like this. So eyes can be closed and just allow yourself to kind of move through in whatever way feels right for you. So that could be circles, it could be side to side motion. Just checking in with how everything is feeling today. You can keep on working there, or let's take Anahatasana. So I'm just widening my knees a little bit, and I like my toes tucked under here, but they don't have to be. And then I'm going to walk my fingertips forward and just melt my heart back towards my thighs. You could also do this with your elbows down if that feels better for you. Okay, chin or forehead could come down, and you might also like to just rock your chest a little bit from side to side, kind of softening into the heart space. And the heart is often where we find that spark that allows us to keep moving through the darkness, even when we can't quite see the lights, trusting that it's going to be there. It's not always in our smart brains that we can see that it's in the heart. And then let's come to the belly. So if you're not on your belly today, you can definitely come to a seat or hands and knees, and you can do cat and cow, or just do the upper body movements from a seat. Right, let's take the fingertips wide off the mat, to the right and to the left, tops of the feet pressed down, engage your glutes and your core. Gently lift your chest up, inhaling, exhaling to gently fold down. And then do that 2 more times with your breath, take your time. And if you'd like, on the third one, you can add a little twist, looking to the left and dipping your right shoulder down. I love this one for the shoulder blades. Up through center. Look to the right and you can dip the left shoulder down. And then do that 1 more time each side if it's feeling good. Up through center, and then all the way down to the earth. Let's release the hands forward if you can, palms up, And forehead to the ground, just relaxing for a moment into the earth, a bit of a surrender. So a part of our practice is surrendering or letting go of all the pieces that are not useful on our journey. Just offering them to the earth. Okay, and then when you're ready, we can make our way all the way back into a downward facing dog. And you can certainly work on your hands and your knees if downward dog isn't a friend today. We're not going to be here too long. Okay, you can bend one knee at a time or be still. And then make your way to the top of your mat. You can hang down over your legs or rest your elbows on bent knees. Maybe you shake your head out a little bit. Again, you can bend one knee at a time. And then we can rise up. So you can roll up as you like, or you can keep your spine nice and neutral as you come up. Collecting the shoulders onto the back. And then widen your feet a little bit. So maybe shoulders distance apart, just a bit wider than we would normally take. Hands on the upper thighs. Okay, hug the shoulders back, heart forward, bend the knees and slide your hands down the legs. And then when you get to the knees, curl your spine and drag the hands back up again. This is a little qigong movement. It's kind of like a standing cat and cow. So shoulders back, chin forward, folding down. Gather belly in and rise as you inhale. Crane breath. And then we'll reverse the direction. So next time you come to the top, we're just going to exhale, curl the chin and the shoulders in, rounding down. And then on the inhale, the chin comes forward, nice long spine rising up. And curling in towards ourselves. And opening up, kind of like that flip-flopping energy of the spring right now. Drawing in towards itself. And then opening up. Let's do that one more time. This little movement's called turtleneck, which I love. And then returning to standing. Inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. Exhale, release the hands around behind your back, interlace the fingers. Hug the elbows together, lift the heart. And as you exhale, fold down over your legs. You may or may not keep the hands interlaced. Okay, if you can. We inhale, halfway lift, fist back, heart forward, and then gently release the fingertips to the earth. Halfway lift again. And then step your right foot back. I'm going to come into a low lunge, but it could be a high lunge or even a warrior one if you need that step. Okay, reach the arms up to the sky. And then take a cactus shape as you exhale. So bend the elbows. I'm going to do that 2 more times, reaching the arms forward and up. And bend. Reaching up. And bend this time. Take the hands all the way around your back and interlace the fingers again, or hook your thumbs. You could use a strap here as well. Hug the elbows back, lift the heart. So just kind of imagining that, kind of beaming your heart up to the sky, up to the light. Finding that part of yourself that can access the parts that you need for this journey and letting go of the parts you don't. Okay, inhale, gently release your hands, let's straighten the front leg. You can untuck the back toes if you like and feel free to use your blocks. Okay, inhale to rise up. And exhale just to gently melt any amount. 2 more times. Okay, and then take that halfway lift after your third breath, no rush. Take your right hand maybe a little bit wider and then open the left arm up to the sky. So we're just taking a nice little bit of an open twist here, hugging the shoulders back, rolling them away from the ears, maybe lifting the chin a bit away from the chest. Inhale and then gently release the hands. Step back so that you're on your knees, and we're going to take 3 camel breaths, which I love. We were doing these yesterday. So reaching the arms up to the sky, and then exhale, surrender, fingertips and forehead to the earth. I'm going to do that 2 more times, rolling up. Letting go. Rolling up. And release. Okay, you might want to take a child's pose here. You could even do embryo pose with the hands beside your hips. Okay, alternately, you could come to your belly and rest in that prone position. And if you have a different shape that you know works for you, please do that. Just again, offering those parts to the earth that you don't need. Maybe letting go of some of that internal struggle. And so much of that for me is always about accepting myself as I am instead of trying to be someone else. Meeting myself where I actually am. Okay, and then when you're ready, we'll come back to the top of the mat so you can come through downward dog and walk forward. If you want to add a vinyasa in there, go for it if you feel like you need a little bit more movement. Okay, we'll just meet up at the top of the mat so you can take a few breaths to roll up or sweep up if you like. We'll just meet each other there. Standing witness. Okay, and then again, take your feet just a little bit wider apart than you normally would. We'll do that same little qigong sequence here. So hands onto the thighs, we'll just do 3 of each. So inhale, crane breath, chin forward, tail back, sliding down. And then drawing in and rolling up. Chin forward, tail back. Curling in. One more like that. Then we reverse the flow, chin in, shoulders in, curling down, little bend in the knees. And then turtleneck, like a turtle coming out of its shell, reaching forward, rising up. Drawing in. So much of that internal battle is the parts of ourselves that want to draw in and avoid the world, and the parts of ourselves that want to move forward. Settling and standing after your third breath, taking a moment. Then reaching the arms up on your inhale. Hands around behind your back, interlace the fingers if you can. You can also just reach them back. We won't be here too long. Lifting the heart as you inhale, and then diving down. Take a halfway lift. It's okay to release your hands, and then let go of the hands. Okay, halfway lift. You might need to bring your feet in a little bit closer if they're quite wide. Step your left foot back, and we'll take that lunge or high lunge or warrior 1. Reaching the arms up, and then we take our cactus, opening the chest 3 times. opening to what's already there. Okay, and then after your third one, keep your hands back behind you. You can reinterlace the fingers or hook the thumbs. Grab a strap if you prefer. Okay, and just let your chest open to the sky. Let the heart open to the sky. Inhale, and then we'll gently release. Hands come down, straighten that front leg. And you could do pyramid here if you've got your back knee lifted. Okay, 3 breaths, lengthening the heart and melting. Breathe these breaths, your own pace. Okay, and then after your third one, take that little halfway lift. You might want to take the left hand a little bit farther open, just for balance, and we'll take that right arm up to the sky. Think of hugging the shoulders together onto your back, opening the chest, and let your neck and throat open a little bit as well. I find it helpful to turn my right palm towards my ear to sort of gather the shoulder down the back. Okay, inhale, and then gently release the hands down, step back. And we'll take those 3 camel breaths again. So we reach up to the sky, and then we surrender to the earth. Inhaling. I let go. And then you may want to take a little moment in child's pose. Some of you might want to take a vinyasa at this point. You're welcome to do that. Not where my energy's at today. But if yours is, go for it. Okay, and then I'd love for us to meet on our bellies. And if we're not coming to the belly today, you can, let's see, which part are we going to do first? You can be seated, or standing is fine as well if you're standing. Okay, so if you're not on your belly, you're just going to do the movements with your upper body, okay, with your arms. If you're on your belly with me, just press the tops of your feet down, lift up the kneecaps, pubic bone presses down and the glutes engage, and then interlace your fingers again around behind your back, and maybe take your other thumb on top so it feels a little unfamiliar. Okay. And then hug the elbows together, press the fist back, and lift your heart. Totally fine to use a strap here as well. Okay. Press the tops of the feet down, opening the heart. If you want to, you can lift up your feet as well, just adding a bit. Inhale, and then gently release and take a little rest. Again, this gesture of kind of melting into the earth, letting go of the pieces you don't need. Okay, and we'll take one more little back bend here. So you can do that exact same thing again. Or you might try bending the knees and reaching for your feet. We haven't done a ton of quad lengthening in class today, so just be gentle with your knees. Okay, make sure this feels safe for you. Okay, you do want to engage the glutes and the core just gently, but you don't have to overly tuck your tailbone. Okay, press the feet into the hands, allow the chest to rise. I personally like this with flex feet. I find I just get a little more power and my knees are a little bit happier, but either way is fine. You can point the toes. It's giving that upper body some love. Inhale, and then gently release down. And again, let go. If you're in a different kind of shape, like seated or standing, just releasing and taking a few breaths into your back body. Okay, and then let's come through cat and cow, which again can be seated or on hands and knees, and just take a few breaths to just rinse that out of your back. Okay, and then I'd love for you to come to your seat and then sit on your right bum so that your shins are parallel to the short edge of your mat and you're sitting on your right hip. And then slide that top knee open so that the knee is in line with the foot. And then we're going to twist to the right. Yeah. So lifting the heart, gently spiraling. This is lovely for the hips, the lower back, and the shoulders as well. So right fingertips are just lightly on the mat behind you. Try to draw that shoulder down your back, and you might try bringing the right ear towards the shoulder as you gently tug up on the left hand, on the left knee, sorry, with the whatever knee that is, the knee you're holding. That left hand is holding a knee. Pull it up gently to help pull your shoulder down your back and just get that little bit of a release into your neck. I hope that made sense. So gently come up through center. Keep your legs as they are, just mildly counter twist. So you're not going to go very far, and I don't want you to crank your knee or anything, but just gently twisting to the left. Then look forward, and we're going to come into pigeon or 90-90 from here. So you can open the knee a little wider and fold down just as is here, or you can bring your right heel in a little, straighten your left leg behind you, and then tuck a prop like a bolster or a cushion or a block or something underneath your elevated hip. Blanket, pillow, whatever you've got, depending on how high up you are. I like to do this with my toes untucked, and then come up to fingertips, hug the shoulders onto the back, lift the heart. And if you do have that back leg straight, you can push the top of the foot into the floor and just get a little bit more of that opening into the quad and psoas region. And then fold down. So for me, pigeon has so much of that metaphor in it of kind of being in the darkness, like the lotus seed trying to get to the light. For a lot of us, pigeon is not a comfortable place. Okay, it gets more comfortable as we do it, but the hips is really that dark area. It's often the place where we kind of hold those things that we don't really want to look at, and when we don't want to look at them, they can be so good at holding us back. Right? It's when we can see clearly the things that that we're holding on to that it becomes much easier to let them go. So all that being said, we'll just take a few breaths just to be here, allowing whatever needs to come up to come up. Beautiful. Okay, when you're ready, we'll come back up to a seat. You can remove that prop if you've got one under your hip, lean onto your right hip, and then you can turn to the long edge of the mat and just wash your knees from side to side. And then we can turn to the other side. So you can just turn right over to the other short edge of your mat. So you're on your left hip. You can start by bringing the legs together and then slide them apart into that deer position with your knee in the arch of your foot, and then gently spiral to the left, shoulders back, and your right hand is holding your knee there. Okay, hugging the shoulders down the back, and you might experiment with letting the left ear come down to the left shoulder and hugging up slightly on the knee with your right hand. Just opening into the neck. You can move it around a little bit if you want, as I'm doing. Okay, and then head back to neutral and just gently counter twist. So again, it's not going to be far, it's just a little squeeze. Okay, and then turning to the front, leaning over onto that left hip, and you can bring your right leg back just a bit and work with 90-90 shape, which some people really like. If you want to take pigeon, you're probably going to be bringing your left heel in a little bit, straightening the right leg, and then you can put something underneath your hip, whatever you've got that works for you. Okay, and then lengthening, pressing the tops of the feet, the top of the right foot down, lengthening the heart, getting that little bit of psoas length. Whenever you're ready, you can come down to your elbows or blocks, or you could put blocks under your head. And just be in that dark place of pigeon, trusting that there's a part of you that knows how to see in the dark. Let's take another deep breath. And then we'll gently rise back up through center. You can take that prop out if you haven't already. Got one there, and just wash your knees from side to side. And you may also want to extend your legs and give them a little shake. So we're going to move from here into a little reflection. And for you, that might mean you're coming right into Shavasana, which is great. Some of you might want to do a little journaling just to write about whatever it was that came up for you in this practice. And I'm just going to give you an option if you'd like to take a shape to reflect in. So if you'd like to do that, you can take a bolster or a cushion or rolled up towel, something like that, around behind your back. And you can lay back over it, taking the soles of the feet together and the knees open wide. And if you have a couple of pillows or blocks, you can put them underneath your knees just for a little more support. If this hurts your back, but you like it otherwise, you can sit up on a low block and or put something underneath the top edge of the bolster so it's at a little bit of an angle. Okay. And then we'll just give a little bit of space to breathing into heart. And you can stay just as you are, or if you'd like to transition from here into more of a Shavasana-like shape, feel free to do that. It might be remaining on the bolster, just with your legs straight, or there might be a shape that works better for you, like laying flat on the ground or on your side or taking legs up the wall, whatever your favorite place is to rest. Classically, it's just laying flat. We'll take these last few minutes of our practice just to receive all of the work that we did today in our bodies and our minds and our hearts. Take a moment to notice how you feel. You can begin to deepen your breath. Bring some small movements into your toes and fingers. And reach your arms up over your head if that's accessible where you are. Gather your knees together if they're still wide, and then in towards your chest. And if you need any kind of windshield wipering or shaking out, feel free to do that with your legs. Eventually curling over onto one side. And then press up to your seat. And place your hand somewhere that works for you. So They could be together at your heart, over top, or maybe for today you'd like to take Lotus Mudra, which looks like this. We've got the thumbs and the pinkies together and the other fingers are opening. It's a gesture of receiving. So feel free to try that if you want to. And then gently bowing your mind to your hands, your heart, your breath, to yourself, and whatever it took for you to get here to your practice. Honoring and acknowledging the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our yoga, our meditation, our tarot. Honoring and acknowledging the sacredness of the land that we practice on. Thank you for sharing that practice with me.